excitement, adventure. Boston Blackie. Enemy of those who make him an enemy. Friend of those who have no friends. Yes, sir. That's Boston Blackie, and he's quite a guy.
I'm getting ready to remove the tubes, but before I do, I'm going to take an air hose. I've got my old compressor here, and I'm going to go ahead and give this thing a couple of good blasts, top and bottom, and get all that crap out of there. But even before that, there's something I need to do. This connector here that goes on the end of the picture tube, the neck that plugs in, this thing has to be protected. And you know, flopping this chassis around this way and that way, you know, you gotta have to understand this is like 60-year-old plastic. It's probably brittle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it up in this towel. I'm going to tape it up real good, and then I'm going to take these wire ties right here and wire tie it off up here somewhere where it won't get damaged, out of the way.
And George Mittler was the bosun on the Cape Blanco? Last scene.
After a party at the Spindrift, he went back to the ship alone. He wasn't in a very sociable mood.
Alright, that makes me feel better. She's protected with pad, and I went ahead and tied the wires together here too, which they were kind of, you know, splayed out, and now this kind of minimizes the chance that something will catch on there and yank them maybe out of there. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it minimizes it, and I'll always keep in mind that that thing is there. Kind of interesting. Look at this power or this transformer. I guess it's I don't know what it is. Choke, audio output transformer. We'll check it later. Look at the crap coming out of there. And this tube right here is at an angle. This one here, the tube shield's not even all the way down on. So, you know, people have been in here over the years. No big deal. That's just part of it. And I might go ahead and tie this one up also. This is a speaker plug. This is pretty important. And this one. I'll do a little cursory work here before I start hitting it with the air.
Blackie and Mary, of all the bad pennies, of all the places to meet you, what are you doing here?
Alright, I've got this thing just wrapped around very loosely and tied off with the a wire tie, and this one down here I just kind of bent it back a little bit and went ahead and tied that one off too. And so now I don't have much flopping around, you know. Very important. You know, I've said this a million times in all of the radio restorations I've done on my YouTube videos. You know, you take your time. Don't be in any rush. This is fun. This is therapeutic. You know, you're not going to impress anyone by breaking something. Yeah, just kind of feel your way around, nice and easy. And you know, when you get done, you might just have a nice product.
I appreciate you trying to help me, Blackie.
Look, we haven't got much time. Give it to me straight.
Blackie, so help me, I don't know anything, except that I didn't do it. I couldn't have done it, not to George.
Okay, we've got the top looking pretty good. Now I'm going to blast this high voltage cage. There's a lot of stuff down in there. I better take a break here till the air clears.
Still see Mittner's body down there?
What do you mean by that?
Not a happy thought, is it?
I've got work to do. I have no time for games.
Well, that's about as clean as I'm going to get it, top and bottom. And it looks a whole lot better with all that old dust off there, years and years of dust. You know, one time I remember someone on the Antique Radio Forum said, you know, whenever I clean these radios, and all that dust is on there, you know, and I begin to wonder, do you think there'd be any germs like from the 1930s in there that we don't know anything about that we could get, you know, be contaminated by, you know? Oh, you took a lot of razzing over that. The fact is, nobody knows. Anyway, it's a good idea to get it out of there so you can see what you got. It looks fairly original for the most part. We've got some very bad soldering here and here, so that automatically tells me that's been messed with. I've said it once before that our technicians in the old days, our electronic techs, were pretty well schooled, but their soldering was horrible. And every time I open up a radio, I see it, and now I open up a television, same thing, horrible soldering. And like I said, it probably had a lot to do with the tools they were using, big giant soldering irons and things. They didn't have what we have now. And it's just no different really than a radio chassis. You know, you got capacitors, you got resistors, you got bumblebees down here, and old wax capacitors that are obviously leaking, some of them, dripping wax. That doesn't mean they're bad, but they will come out. And some, these electrolytics here. This one here is definitely a change. And this mica here, it looks like it might have been, a joint formed right there and replaced, because that's kind of tacky soldering right there too. And we have a resistor here that's really in bad shape. It's a wire wound resistor. Look at that, my pencil just flaking it right off of there. So that's something else that'll have to go. It'll be a long, slow process, folks. And it all starts with checking the tubes and then sitting down and figuring out what resistors, yes, and what capacitors I have to order. Look at there, we've got a nice juicy burned one right there. Ooh, look at that one. Ooh, that's a good one. I like that. I like them old burned up ones. Let me see where that goes. Well, it runs up here to a tube. Well, that ought to be interesting. Look at it. It got so hot that the solder blobbed up. Look at there. Is that cool? Yeah, that's cool. Alright, just a radio chassis. We will refurbish this chassis. Don't let it intimidate you. It does not intimidate me, because I've got guys that have my back. The next time you see me, we'll be testing some tubes.
Mentner kept his stuff in his mattress. Thanks, Blackie. It's a good idea. Down here. Blackie, I didn't know you were aboard. You're in your cabin. I came down here to see Hayes. Incidentally, where is he? I just saw him run him out. What? Well, keep your eye on this character. Faraday will want him as an accessory to murder.
It is tube test time. I'm not going to show every tube being tested, of course, but after I cleaned up all these tubes and got the numbers on them and everything, these 4 tubes, right here, these 2 large and 2 small, may be substitutes. I don't know, but they're uncalled for in the schematic. So we're not going to use those. I may test them to make sure they're okay, but we're not going to use them. We're going to use the actual tube numbers as called for in the schematic. Now this first one here is a 6SN7. This one right here. And what we're going to do is supposed to read between 1.7 and 2.6. It'd be up, 1.7 to 2.6, somewhere in that area right there. And it's a 2-piece tube, or a 2-part tube. After I test the first half, then I need to pull this lever down to here along with this one, and we can test the second half. So let's test the first half just by pulling this one lever. Remember, 1.7 to around 2.6. So let's see what happens here. Good tube. Outstanding. Looking good. Now we'll pull down both levers. See what that gives us. Another good tube, looking real good. Now, let's take this one here and test that one. That's our next one. Let's get that in there. The second one is in, and we'll test one side of it. Remember, again, 1.7 to 2.6. It's looking pretty good, about right in the middle. Not too bad. Now we pull down both of them. Very weak. Very weak. Doesn't even register up into the normal. So that tube will have to be replaced. One other thing I haven't showed you before, for those of you who have watched my videos, on this particular tube tester, you have different positions over here on the short leakage test. And it's heater to cathode, plate, or the control grid, plate, I think that would be screen grid, and grid 3 would be suppressor grid, I assume. Anyway, what you do is you put, you're checking for shorts on any of these positions. So once your tube is in the tester, you put it to the heater to cathode position, and then you tap your tube, and you're looking for any deflection on the meter. Just tap it with a pencil is all it takes. Alright, this is the last tube I'll show you, and then I'll finish checking all the rest down here. It's a 6AQ5 miniature tube, and should read 1.9 to 3.7, and we're using the the top scale, so it'll be about 1.9 to 3.7, somewhere in there right there. Let's see what happens. Oh, it's looking good, looking good. Okay, so that's how it's done, and again, you know, you tap your tube as you run this switch through the various positions. It's very important to do that. Now see, look at here, look at there. You see that right there? Look at there. I have a shorted, let me flip the switch one more time. Look at that. We have a shorted cathode to heater on that tube right there.
This is as far as you go, Hayes. Come on.
Alright, I've got a 6AU6 in there. I wanted to show you one more thing. There, I'm not touching this thing at all, and what we're showing here is a control grid short. Control grid short, and it just jumps around all by itself. It's probably shorted to the cathode or something.